This podcast is for anyone who has ever felt stuck, whether it's a major life transition, a dark night of the soul, or just staying small out of fear. If you've ever struggled to move forward, if you're repeating unhealthy patterns in relationships, or you have a black belt in beating yourself up, you were meant for more, and this podcast is for you. We'll get real, we'll get vulnerable, we'll probably cuss a little bit, and we'll get to the root of it all, your self-worth. With every step, you'll find the courage to rise. Welcome to episode 4 of the Courage to Rise podcast. Today we're going to talk about making a soul decision. It's the first step in rising. It's the first step in making any change, any shift. It's the first step in getting unstuck. And until we make that decision, we're not going to move forward in the ways that we really need to move forward, and we're still at risk of staying stuck and staying down at the bottom of that well. And I want to illustrate this in 2 key ways, the ways that this tends to show up in our lives in general. And the first is any change that we're making, any shift that we're making, any goal that we're trying to achieve, anything we're trying to break through. And the second is going to be the more extreme example of when we're really in that deep, dark night of the soul. But the fundamental premise is the same, and that you have to make what I have come to call a soul decision. And the soul decision is the point where you reach, where you say from deep within yourself, it cannot continue on this way. There is too much pain associated with me continuing status quo, whatever that status quo is. And no matter what it takes, I am going to find a way over, under, around, and through, out of this dark night, out of this habitual pattern that I'm repeating, out of whatever it is in my life that is no longer serving me. And nothing will ever truly shift or change in our lives until we make that deep commitment, that deep soul decision that it's going to be different. Because this is something that I see come up repeatedly, that I certainly experienced in my own life. We so often default to, oh, it can't be different. It's just status quo. We come up with all these reasons. We tell ourselves all these stories. And it's complete and utter bullshit. Because what it takes to change is literally the commitment within yourself that things are going to be different. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to wake up tomorrow and you're going to have the blueprint for exactly what that's going to look like, or that automatically everything's going to be easy. That's not what it's about. It's about you saying from a moment in time, deep within yourself, I am ready for things to be different. I am ready for things to change. I am ready never to live this way again. And that soul decision usually happens when we have hit such a crescendo of pain associated with something that we have no other choice but to make a change. And I gave the example of my own dark night of the soul in episode 1, where my pain hit such a level that I only had 2 options left, which was to check myself out permanently from this particular incarnation and existence, or to figure out what had led me to that point. And in that moment, I made that soul decision that I was going to rise. I was never going to be in that place again. I was going to figure out how the hell I'd gotten there, how the hell I had let these things happen, that I was going to figure out every way, every teacher, every book, every course, every spiritual practice, whatever it was that it took, I was going to figure it out, because that's the crescendo that the pain had hit. And that's the point where we usually get to make a change. And this goes to, that's a very extreme example, obviously, but this goes to finances. You know, when we're in so much debt that there's extreme pain that's associated with that. You know, extreme examples of that are bankruptcy or foreclosure on your house. These are really extreme examples, but that's an extreme example of pain. Think about it in terms of your health. When your health, you've maybe taken poor care of your health for years, and it gets to such a point where you have to make a change because there's a truly negative consequence that's associated with it, whether it's blood pressure that's threatening your life, or your weight has gotten to a point where it's inhibiting you from doing the things that you want to do. It comes back to that pain and pleasure principle. And that's where usually the catalyst is, because we don't have any other choice. And it's fine if we're at that point. What we want to try to do is catch it before it gets to that extreme. And in order to do that, it's understanding, looking around and looking at, where are we in our life right now? What's really not working? Is it our health? Is it a relationship? Is it our finances? Is it our career? What about our life isn't working? And making a decision that you're going to find a way to find fulfillment. You're going to find a way to heal the relationship, to shift your health, to get your finances where we want them to be. Because we want to also look at the stories that we're telling ourselves. We want to look at the stories that get told in society, because there's this unspoken, and sometimes not always unspoken, societal script that everyone is overweight, everyone is unhealthy, everyone is in debt, everyone's relationship sucks, everything is just hard. And that's such bullshit. It's such a story. No, life isn't always easy. Yes, challenging things happen to us, but we don't have to settle for this societal script of the status quo, because it's not true that everybody's unhealthy. It's not true that everybody's in debt. It's not true that everybody that's married is miserable. And if we're going to settle for that, if we're going to buy into that, then yeah, that's going to continue to perpetuate. But you need to choose differently for yourself if you want to. If you want to continue to stay unhappy, continue to stay stuck, continue to stay living in those pain cycles and repeating that, then that's a decision as well. But what stands in the way is that we feel like we're helpless to that. We feel like we have to give in to, oh, this is just how it is, and it's not true. And so within yourself, you find that space where you say, I'm going to take whatever steps I need to take for things to be different, because I want to live a different life. I am not happy living in a body that feels unhealthy, that, maybe is carrying extra weight that doesn't feel good for me. Because again, it's not about your size. Like, we're all born with different body structures and size and shape. It's about, do you feel healthy and good in your body? It's not about being stick figure thin at all. And that's a whole other conversation about body image. But it's about, do you feel good and healthy in your body? Because remember, what we put into our body, food should be fuel and medicine. And too often we just use it as a Band-Aid to fill ourselves with comfort, with all those other things. And we want it to be food and medicine for our body. Certainly have time, for our treats, but we want to fill ourselves with good food, with healthy food, so that we're showing up in the world from the best place mentally. There's such a connection with what we put in our bodies and how our brains work, like the biochemistry of it, and how we move our body. And there's all manner of studies that's done, whether it's just walking, whether it's yoga, whether it's weight training, about the benefits of that and the positives that has in our life. The big shift to making these changes and to making these last is to, first of all, drop the stories that we're telling ourselves that aren't helping, and drop the shame that's associated with being stuck. I cannot tell you how much shame and shoulding on ourselves, right? I should do this, I shouldn't do that. How much that keeps us trapped. It's like being stuck in a hamster wheel, because we're putting all this pressure on myself. Oh, I should lose weight. I should pay off my debt. I should do this. I feel so much shame around it. I feel shame about the fact that I haven't moved forward, that I haven't done this. And that is such a disempowering place to be. And from that place, we don't move forward, because we're too busy being caught up in those stories, being caught up in the shame around it. And so when we look at this idea of shifting anything in our life, of rising from anything in our life, the first step is releasing shame around our starting point. Because maybe your starting point is you are overweight for your size and build, you are unhealthy, you're not putting good foods in your body, and you are feeling just really awful on a regular basis. Maybe your starting point is you're in $50,000 of debt. Maybe your starting point is you have a pattern of chronically unhealthy, toxic relationships. Your starting point is where you are. And the first step is accepting wherever you are and not shaming yourself, not blaming yourself, not piling guilt on top of that, because that is such a low vibration. It is such a disempowering state to be in. And in order to make the soul decision that things are going to be different, we need to first release the shame around wherever we are, because we cannot go back in time and change anything that's happened to us. All we can do is move forward from this point. And staying stuck in the past, staying stuck in shame and blame and negative spirals is just a disempowering state that's not going to move us forward. So the first step is accepting where we are. This is where I am. This is where my finances are. This is where my health is. This is where my career is. This is where my relationships are. I accept that this is my starting point. It's as if you were I used to get lost in the middle of Texas when I first started my working career, because it was before we had GPS and things on our phone, and I was out in the middle of West Texas and had no freaking idea where I was, and I had a map, but I couldn't figure out where I was. But the whole point is, it doesn't matter how you got there. It doesn't really matter how you got lost in the middle of, let's say, West Texas in this example. It doesn't matter how you got lost in your life. It doesn't matter how you got off track in your health and your finances and your relationships. Standing there and blaming yourself for being lost, in this example, again, we're in the middle of West Texas, blaming yourself for getting lost. I'm so stupid for taking this turn when I should have taken that turn. That is a disempowering state that doesn't serve us at all. And this is the difference. This is the shift that you want to make, is releasing yourself from the shame and blame of how you got to wherever you are as your starting point. Yes, we want to learn from the past. We want to understand how we made those decisions so that we don't make them again. But that's an empowering way to approach it. The disempowering way is to continue to blame yourself for where you are. Just in love and compassion to, hey, this is where I am, and wow, I got myself lost. And in order to move forward, I need to take steps to get myself unstuck from this. And so that's the first step. And that's that soul decision that you make of, it doesn't truly matter how I got here. It doesn't matter in the sense of blaming yourself, of shaming, of, making yourself feel horrible about it, feel guilty about it. That part is just unhelpful. We want to look at how can we move forward and make the decision. It doesn't matter how I got where I am. I will learn what I need to learn to figure out how not to get here again, but I'm going to move forward. I'm going to take steps forward. I am going to choose more empowering states for myself so that I can move forward from this. In the next episode, we're going to talk about self-talk, and we're going to talk about our inner gremlin, which ties into exactly what we're talking about now with the ways that we beat ourselves up for where we are. But that is such a disempowered place to be. And from that point, you're not going to move forward. And our goal is to accept where we are and to move forward without beating ourselves up about it. And think about it this way. If you had your child or your puppy or your, something that's in your care that has made a mistake, are you going to constantly berate it, beat it up, make it feel horrible about that? Like, think how constructive that is, right? If you have a little child who is still learning and they make a mistake, and if you're yelling at them and telling them how stupid you are for doing this, like, that's not how you're going to talk to your child. How would you then talk to yourself, right? We talk to ourselves in such a horrible way, in ways that we would never talk to anybody else. But think about giving yourself that compassion for whatever your starting point is, for whatever it is within you that needs to shift, that you're ready to change. If it's that relationship, if it's your health, if it's your career, if it's your mental state, whatever it is, let go of the shame story. Let go of beating yourself up about being wherever you are, and accept your starting point and make the soul decision within yourself. Go deep within yourself and say, it doesn't matter what I have to do, what I have to learn, whatever steps I need to take. I am tired of living this way, and I am ready for things to be different. and I believe that things will be different. And I will do whatever needs to be done, take whatever steps need to take. And again, the example that I gave of that dark night of the soul, I didn't wake up the next morning all of a sudden with a blueprint of how the hell I was going to do this. And it took me 2 years of work, of every day, 1% a day, to get to the point where I really had a good understanding and a really healthy perspective on the things that had happened and the ways that I had let myself get to that point. And so but it all comes from that soul decision, because when you make that decision that you're going to get healthy, that you're going to pay off your debt, that you're going to shift your life, that is the way that people who are struggling, even with things that are intense as addictions or alcoholism, every alcoholic who has ever decided to get sober and stay sober has made a deep decision within themselves that they are going to change, that things are going to be different. And this is 100% possible for everyone. There's no such thing as a lost cause, and you are certainly not a lost cause. The human spirit is the most powerful force on this planet when we allow it to be. When we use that power for good, right? Not for evil. But when you dig deep within yourself and you say, I am ready for things to be different. I'm going to make this change. I'm going to make this shift. It doesn't matter what it is. I am so committed to living differently, to having a better quality of life, to living a life of fulfillment, to stepping into pleasure, to getting out of the pain spiral that I'm in. That soul decision within you, that power of the human spirit, is the most powerful force on the planet, and it is within everyone, every single person on the planet. And the question that I'll leave you with is, are you ready to do what it takes to shift your life? Are you ready to truly commit to the change that you've been sort of bumbling around, to the thing that you've been wishing in your life would be different? Are you ready to really make that shift? And you know what? It's okay if you're not right now yet, because this is an interim step, is saying, I'm not really ready to take the steps that it's going to take to get healthy, to have financial freedom, to make this change. I'm not really ready yet. That's so much better than saying you can't, because the can't is it's total bullshit. It's disempowering. It's keeping you trapped in a story, and it's keeping you small. And the other one is, I'll try. That's also bullshit. And Yoda said it best, do or do not. There is no try. And all that's doing is giving us an out. And that is a disempowering state. And so own it. Own whatever your decision is. If there's a relationship that you feel like is no longer serving you, but you're not quite ready to leave it yet, then that's okay, but own that too. If you're not quite ready to take the steps you need to take to stop smoking, to drink less, to be healthier, that's okay too, but own that decision, because owning that decision is a step toward making that bigger shift. As long as we stay trapped in the I'll try or I can't or whatever the other bullshit story is we're telling, we're staying in a disempowered place. And it is infinitely better to say, I'm not quite ready to take the steps that I'm going to need to take, because I know it's going to mean a big change and I don't know if I'm ready to do that yet. But that is also a step in the right direction. Just own it. Whatever it is, own it. And when you're ready, when you're really ready, you'll know. And when you decide to make that change, when you finally get so sick of staying in this status quo, staying in this level of being in debt, being unhealthy, being in pain, constantly repeating these patterns that just aren't serving you, then you're ready. Then you make that deep soul decision that you'll get healthy, that you'll heal from your heartbreak, that you will move forward, you will get out of debt, that you will have the life that you want, the amazing life of fulfillment, because it is 100% possible for you. And so from that place, you release the need to control or know exactly how it's going to happen, Ignore any of the voices in your head that are telling you all the reasons why it can't happen. Have patience with the process. Don't beat yourself up for where you are. Just accept your starting point and call on that soul fire within you, that triumph of the human spirit, that you're going to shift, you're going to change, you're going to do whatever it takes to live the life that you know you want to live, to have a life that feels so much better for you in your health, in your relationships, in your money, whatever it is. So that is what I mean when I say you make the soul decision that you're going to rise. It comes from deep within you, and you stop telling yourself a story that you can't have that you can't have what you want, or that it's too hard, or that you can't do it. Because you absolutely can do it. And when you make that soul decision, then you are willing to do whatever it takes, to have whatever temporary pain might be associated with making those changes. If it's, shifting out of eating really unhealthy foods because it makes you feel better temporarily, but long term it's going to make you feel bad, right? There's temporary discomfort that's associated with that. Eating broccoli as opposed to eating oatmeal chocolate chip cookies for dinner. But we want to look at the long term. We want to look at the long-term impact that's going to have on you and the daily choices that you make, because the first step is accepting that starting point and making the soul decision that things are going to be different for you, and then releasing your expectation around the time that it's going to take to get there. And literally just every single day, you're making the next right choice. You're taking the next right step, 1% a day, sometimes 0.5% a day, making choices consistently that are moving you forward toward that, and checking back in on having compassion and love for yourself wherever you are, and not letting that shame spiral take over, not beating yourself up for wherever you are, continuing to say, I'm taking steps every day. I'm going to get there no matter what. And that's the soul decision. That's what has to happen first. That's the first step to rise from anywhere you are, whether you're in a broken heap on the floor or whether you're just ready to move forward from wherever you're feeling stuck. The first step is to make that soul decision from deep within you that you will rise no matter what. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Courage to Rise podcast. Visit my website, couragetorise.com, for more information on one-on-one coaching, group coaching programs, and other upcoming events. Remember, life's too short not to sparkle. Sparkle on.